Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are taking a really fascinating look at this little bronze gold box.
hmm
When it hit the market back in 2012, it sort of quietly solved a huge problem for professional guitarists.
Yeah.
We are deep diving into the MXR M77 Custom Badass Modified Overdrive.
This is such a good one for a deep dive, actually, because the source material, it doesn't just list specs. It really tells the story of like step-by-step improvement.
Wow.
It's an analog overdrive, but with a very specific mission. Take all the good stuff from MXR's earlier circuits
Right.
and basically turn them into the definitive tool for stage and studio. High-level stuff.
So our goal today, then, is figuring out exactly how the M77 pulled off this balancing act. How did it manage to bridge, that vintage warmth everyone loves?
Yeah, the classic sound.
With the modern tweakability, the control that pros really need. We want to see how this pedal actually earned that custom badass name.
Okay, so to really get the M77, you kind of have to start with its family tree, right?
Okay.
It came after the M78 distortion.
Right.
And it was made specifically to refine and, well, it evolved two pedals MXR already had. The GTOD.
Okay, the green one.
Yep. And the ZW44. That was Zakk Wylde's signature overdrive.
Ah, right. So it's not like they started from scratch. It's building on something, modifying something that was already working.
Exactly.
So what was it trying to fix? What were the shortcomings in those older pedals?
Well, the sources are pretty clear on this. The original GTOD, it was super transparent, yeah. But a lot of players felt it was a bit thin.
Thin. How so?
Like especially driving clean amps,
Hey.
it just lacked that necessary low-end punch, that girth.
Gotcha. And the ZW44.
Well, rock guys loved it, obviously, but it was often just too aggressive, maybe voiced a bit too specifically for everyone else to use it easily.
Okay.
So the M77's goal was to blend the transparency of the GTOD with the kind of muscle of the ZW44.
Right.
While fixing the low-end problems of both. It was meant to be, better, bolder, and just work for more people, more flexible.
Okay, let's dig into that core architecture then. If the goal was synthesis, mixing those elements, what was the technical plan the MXR engineers used?
Well, the foundation was staying true to its roots. It's an analog op-amp-based overdrive circuit.
Okay, op-amp based. For our listeners maybe not deep in the weeds, what does that mean practically?
So the op-amp, the operational amplifier, is like the engine of the drive. It does the first big gain boost and the clipping.
Right.
Choosing that immediately puts it in the same family as like the DoD OD250 or the Ibanez Tube Screamer classics.
But with an MXR flavor.
Exactly. They gave it the distinct MXR voicing, that specific feel.
And what about the texture? You hear people say it's smooth, not fizzy. Where does that come from?
That's the clipping section. They went with symmetrical clipping diodes. Now, that's a key technical choice.
Symmetrical clipping. What does that actually sound like compared to, say, asymmetrical?
Okay, so symmetrical clipping, it basically limits the top and bottom parts of the sound wave equally.
Right.
And the result is a smoother, more rounded tone. It feels more naturally compressed, less like a harsh, buzzy distortion, and more like a really nicely saturated tube amp being pushed hard.
Okay, that makes sense. And they also gave it an active EQ stage and a JF input stage. That JFET part sounds interesting.
Yeah, the JF input, that helps it feel more responsive,
Yeah.
to your actual playing.
How you attack the strings.
Exactly. It's really dynamic, reacts to soft playing, or if you dig in hard, just like a good tube amp should.
And the active EQ, why is that a big deal?
Huge deal, because, see, a passive tone control, like on a lot of vintage pedals, it really only cuts high frequencies. That's it.
Right, it just rolls off the top.
But an active EQ like this it lets you cut or maybe slightly boost frequencies, specifically the high end here.
So more shaping power.
Way more control over your presence, your brightness, than just a simple passive tone knob.
So the whole design philosophy seems to be about this responsive gain structure, making it feel like a hot-rodded amp, not just a pedal effect.
Totally. And you see that right in the controls. Output, which gives you a lot of clean booth, by the way.
Good to know.
Then the tone control, that active high filter we just talked about. Gain, obviously, for the amount of drive.
Standard stuff there.
But then the whole modification idea, it's all wrapped up in that one unique feature that really sets it apart.
Oh.
The BMMP switch.
Ah, yes, the BMP switch. Oh, we'll definitely need to circle back to that. So, okay, that's the blueprint. How does it all translate into sound? What's the actual core character?
If you had to boil down, transparent yet muscular. That's the phrase that keeps coming up.
Transparent yet muscular. Okay, explain that. If it adds muscle, warmth, drive, How is it still transparent? Seems like a bit of a contradiction.
Huh. Yeah, it's the classic overdrive puzzle, isn't it?
Hmm.
But the sources explain it really well. It comes down to the EQ curve.
How so?
See, unlike a tube screamer, which is famous for that big mid-hump.
That nasal thing that cuts through.
Exactly. The M77's EQ is actually much flatter through the middle and doesn't radically reshape your basic mid-frequencies. Instead, the modifications, the muscle, focus more on the edges of the sound, the highs and lows.
Which connects back to what you said earlier. It's got significantly more bass than the original GTOD, so it avoids that thinness problem.
Precisely. That modification gives you a much clearer low end, smoother highs too, and richer harmonics when you push the gain up.
So it fills things out without messing with the core voice of your guitar.
Yeah, but lets your instrument's character shine through, but just bigger, fuller.
Okay, so let's place it in the market then.
Yeah.
Compared to the big competitors, the other famous overdrives, where does the M77 land, tonally speaking?
It actually hits this really clever sweet spot. Think about a Boss SD1 or a Tube Screamer. Compared to those, the M77 has way more usable low end.
Right. This can sound kind of thin for rhythm playing sometimes.
Yeah, great for solos, maybe, but they can drop out otherwise. Then you compare it to something like, say, a full-tone OCD.
Which is known for being more open, dynamic.
Right, maybe a bit scoop sounding sometimes. The M77 actually offers more mid-warmth than that and a smoother, maybe more immediate gain feel.
So it's not quite a mid-hump pedal, not quite a totally flat dynamic drive. It's somewhere in between.
Exactly. It's this great middle ground. It gives you versatility without making you sacrifice body or clarity. It's really well balanced.
And you're saying the key to that versatility, that balancing act, really comes down to that signature feature, the BMP switch. This is the core of the modified part of the name.
Absolutely. That switch is the modification, essentially. Technically speaking, it's a bass frequency contour switch.
Okay, what is it contour?
When you flick it on, it actively adds emphasis, a boost to the low end and the low mids, specifically centered around 100 hertz.
100 hertz, that's pretty low.
Yeah, and the source material is specific. It's about a 60 OB boost right there.
6 decibels. That's not subtle. You definitely feel that. So what's the practical effect when you hit that switch? What does it do for your playing?
Well, the main thing is it just fattens up the tone instantly, which is like absolutely crucial if you're using maybe a guitar with lower output pickups or something naturally bright like a Strat or a Tele.
Right, gives them some weight.
Exactly. It injects that warmth, that girth, makes a thinner sounding guitar just sound powerful.
And importantly, the sources say it doesn't just add low-end mush, right? It actually tightens the bass response at the same time.
Yes. That's the clever bit of engineering. It's not just turning up a bass knob, it's shaping it.
So define bass, not just rumble.
Defined bass, which is why it works so well when you stack pedals. You put this before another distortion or a fuzz, and it gives that next pedal a solid foundation, adds body, but without turning the whole thing into mud. It stays tight.
Now, here's where the story gets really cool. The origin of that bum MP switch. Apparently, it wasn't dreamed up in the lab initially.
No. And this is fascinating. The Bomb MP switch was actually inspired by a mod, like an internal tweak, that the MXR engineers kept having to do for their big-name session player clients. These pros, they loved the GPOD's transparency, but they kept asking for this bass boost mod.
Why? What was the issue?
They felt the stock pedal, even though transparent, just sounded too flat. It didn't have enough authority, maybe, in a really dense studio mix or live.
So they kept asking MXR to tweak it internally.
Yeah, they'd bring their pedals in. Hey, can you make this a bit fatter?
Yeah.
And MXR did this mod so often, and it sounded so good.
That they realized they should just make it a standard feature.
Exactly. They realized, wait, this internal hack, this custom request, this is the feature. Let's put it on the outside.
That's brilliant. Talk about user-driven design, a secret menu item becoming the main course.
Pretty much.
Okay, so let's talk about using the M77 then. How does it behave across its gain range? Its versatility seems key to its reputation.
Oh, it's incredibly adaptable. That's why I hear about people just leaving it on all the time.
A always-on pedal thing.
Yeah. So if you keep the gain dial set pretty low, like 9 to 11 o'clock maybe,
Okay.
it works beautifully as just a tone enhancer. Or really good clean boost. Adds that foundational warmth. Very touch sensitive, very dynamic, but without much obvious grit.
Nice. And then if you turn it up, mid-gain.
Right. Move that gain up towards noon, maybe 2 o'clock. Now you're in that classic overdrive zone.
The sweet spot.
Yeah, that thick amp-like grit. The, SRV, Clapton, Page, that kind of feel. like a great vintage amp, just starting to break up nicely.
And then cranking it. What happens when you dime the gain?
So high gain, like 2 o'clock all the way up to 5, you get this really thick, saturated singing sustain.
Not fizzy, you mentioned.
Not fizzy. That's the key. Because of that symmetrical clipping and the careful EQ shaping, it stays smooth even when it's really cooking. Great for lead work, solos, holds notes forever.
So given all that, the sound, the flexibility, the B-P switch, what's its legacy been like? In the studio, on stage, did it catch on quickly?
Oh yeah, it became one of MXR's best reviewed modern drives pretty fast. Players across all sorts of genres grabbed onto it.
Like a tape.
Blues guys, country players, hard rock, modern, alt rock, because it could adapt, you see.
Yeah.
And that always-on quality made it a huge hit in studios.
Yeah.
Especially paired with like a good tube combo amp that maybe needed that extra low-end push and definition from the B-MP switch.
So it really cemented that custom badass line as being, well, legit, not just a marketing name.
Totally. It showed they could deliver serious pro-level tone. We can probably boil down its legacy to like 4 main points from the sources.
Okay, let's hear it, bro.
First, it worked because it unified and refined those earlier circuits, the GTOD and ZW44. Took the best bits, made them better, put them in one box.
One.
Second, it brought real, practical tonal flexibility. That B-MP switch and the active EQ were game changers, especially in that standard small MXR pedal size. Third, and this is the tricky one for any drive pedal, it really did manage to balance transparency and character.
Yeah.
It keeps your core tone intact while adding this really nice muscular warmth.
The magic combo.
Yeah.
3.
And finally, number 4. By doing all this so well, it proved that the custom badass line was a genuine alternative to those expensive small batch boutique builders.
Right, showed MXR could play in that league.
Yeah, and it definitely paved the way for later pedals in that line, like the M75 super badass distortion.
So looking back, the M77 really succeeded because MXR listened. Right, they listened to what the pros, the experts were actually asking for.
Absolutely. They focused the modifications on controlling that crucial low-end frequency range. And that single focus transformed what was a decent transparent circuit into this incredibly flexible, really versatile amp-like drive pedal.
You know, this whole deep dive into the M77 story, it's kind of a perfect lesson for you, the listener, thinking about gear design.
Yeah.
Well, the M77's journey really shows how sometimes a simple internal mod, something requested by just a few specific players,
can become the most important, defining external feature of a super successful mass market product. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Next time you see a cool switch or knob on a piece of gear, maybe it was only just dreamed up in an R&D lab somewhere.
All right.
Maybe the most innovative features actually come from the workarounds, the hacks, you know, the stuff players demand because they need it to get the job done night after night. How much innovation is driven by those secret mods versus original design?
Something to definitely mull over. Until our next deep dive.